Welcome to the Green Living Now podcast, the show that helps you live healthier, cleaner, and more consciously without overwhelm. I'm your host, Amy Tedisco, Green Living mentor, organic farmer, and holistic health advocate with over 30 years of experience helping people just like you detox their lives from the food that they eat to the products that they use. Each week, I bring you powerful stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you ditch the toxins, embrace sustainable living, and feel your best naturally. In today's episode, you will meet Carrie De Grandmont, a high-performance health coach whose story is as inspiring as it is eye-opening. Diagnosed with cancer at just the age of 13, she turned to holistic healing and whole foods to reclaim her health. Years later, a second wake-up call came in the form of her young son who developed mysterious symptoms after the family had lapsed into a typical American diet as they were living with relatives. Carrie's journey is a vivid reminder that what we eat and how we live can either fuel disease or support healing. If you've ever questioned the impact of food and toxins on your health and your life, this conversation will stay with you long after it ends. Carrie De Grandmont, welcome to the Green Living Podcast.
Thank you.
Your story is so powerful, the little bit that I know of it, and I can't wait for people to hear how you have transformed what must have been absolutely horrendous to hear at the age of 13. So I'm going to let you just do a little introduction of yourself.
Okay, so I'm Carrie De Grandmont. I'm living right now over here in Northern California. I'm an East Coast girl, though. I've worked professionally as a high performance coach and an integrative nutrition health coach. And that all came out of my past, and I was steered in this direction at some point in my life. I just finished the first draft of my book and expecting to be releasing it this year. It has a lot of stories in it that happened to me because I did have cancer as a child, but also went through some other things, traumatic brain injury and drug addiction. And so I've come out of it able to use a lot of my history, knowledge, experience, and research to help other people improve their lives.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about what happened when you were 13, which seems to be the major catalyst, would you say?
Definitely.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what happened.
Well, I was 13 years old. I was living in Miami, Florida. I woke up one morning not feeling well, and I stayed home, straight A student, no problem. Back then, we were allowed to stay home alone, and no big deal. Well, I didn't get out of bed the whole day. I was unable to eat. I didn't even realize I was so out of it until my mom came home that night. I didn't come to dinner. She checked in on me momentarily, and then she came in after dinner, and she sat on the bed and was like, "What's going on? Are you okay?" I said, I thought it was period. I had cramps. That's what I thought earlier in the day.
Yeah. Wait, so you were home alone the whole day in bed in
I
pain?
was, which wasn't unusual. Right. Well, she checked on me at lunchtime. I answered. I'm okay. I'm just
Okay.
okay. 1983, I think.
Right.
So I was okay, home alone.
Yeah.
And she pulled down the covers and she screamed, "Clayton, call an ambulance now!" I mean, my mom's Sicilian. It was all real quick, real fast.
Yeah.
They decided an ambulance was going to take too long. And so they took me to North Miami General Hospital, which I believe is no longer in business. I think we should have filed a malpractice suit.
Yes, but let me just back up for a second. So the reason she was in a panic when she pulled the sheets back was because
Sorry. My stomach was like I was 9 months pregnant. I was full of fluid.
Wow.
And I was a skinny little thing, and I had a big old, my belly was
Terrifying.
full.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. And so they brought me to the hospital, emergency room. They wanted my mom out of that emergency room. They ended up admitting me. She was loud. She was screaming at them. They were telling her I had cirrhosis of the liver, maybe. She's screaming, "My daughter's not an alcoholic. You people are out of your mind." Anyway.
Yeah. And you were only 13, for goodness sakes.
They put me up in a room, admitted me, and they told my parents that a doctor would be in at the end of the weekend. That's who we were waiting for to see me so that they could determine what was going on.
Yikes. And so this was a Friday. So that was
Friday.
waiting 2 days with a stomach the size of a 9-month pregnancy.
Yes. And
for
so
a
they gave me an
13-year-old.
IV. Yes, and they gave me an IV, and they did not give me a catheter, and I couldn't go to the bathroom. I remember trying, and I remember being in a lot of pain, and I remember my parents in the room, And I remember the movie that was on the TV in the hospital room, all the
Oh
things.
God, how
Anyway,
terrifying.
my mom told the hospital, sign her out. We want an ambulance. We want to go to Children's Hospital.
And that was a better hospital as far as your mom is
Well, it was for
concerned?
children, so at
Ah.
least maybe that.
Well, and especially
So,
if the doctor wasn't expected for 2 days, hopefully
right,
Children's
they
Hospital
needed
would
me
have
to be
somebody
seen.
immediate.
They needed me to
Okay.
be seen. So they wouldn't sign me out. And so my parents signed me out and they employed an ambulance to take me to Children's Hospital.
Oh
When
my
I
Lord.
arrived in the emergency there, I went immediately into prep for surgery. So I ended
Not
up going
surprised.
emergency exploratory surgery, where they removed 2 liters of fluid, like a 2 liter bottle of fluid, out of my abdomen cavity. They took out my fallopian tube, my appendix, my ovary, and the 2 liters of fluid
And why the appendix?
because they were in there. What they told my parents.
They were what? Say it again.
Because they were in there. I,
Really? So there was no
oh,
real reason for the appendix to be
no,
removed.
no,
Oh, good
that's been
grief.
an ongoing conversation.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
why
Okay.
did they
And
take
so
my appendix?
and so they got in there, they saw all this fluid. Did they know what was going on at that point?
I don't know if they knew when they were in there, but they told my parents that we were told was that there was a tumor in my ovary and that it had burst. Now, I've
Oh.
done so much research looking for that to be a thing.
Yeah, yeah. I've never heard of a tumor
And
bursting.
it's, I've come across like it's super rare, never happens.
Right.
They did tell me I was going to be 1% of girls my age who got that kind of cancer at that age. So
So let
whatever
me just
that was.
ask you, how
Mhm.
did they know it was cancer versus like an ovarian cyst?
I don't know.
Like, did they
I
ever do
tried.
any kind of cell analysis or anything to determine that it was actually cancer?
I mean, I imagine they did, or they wouldn't have prescribed me 18 months of chemotherapy.
Well, God, I would hope so, but geez,
Right.
okay.
I mean, it was a very big, reputable
Well, and
hospital.
part of the reason I'm asking this is because I actually years ago had a fibroid, a uterine fibroid, and it was something I was trying to heal naturally, which, long story short, I ended up having to get surgery through a synchronicity of angelic intervention, I think. But I had a cyst, an ovarian cyst that actually burst. And I knew that it had burst because I felt this intense pain on my left side. And I went to the hospital, and even after two CAT scans, one with dye and one without, they couldn't confirm it. How I know it was true, besides my own intuition, was when I ended up getting the surgery to get the fibroid out, the surgeon saw all the damage from that burst ovary. So that's why I'm super curious about how they even came up with this idea that this was cancer. Okay, continue.
So as an adult, I've been very curious as well. And so
Yes,
I
yes, yes, I'm
did
sure you
look
have.
back. I was going through a medical transcription class at one point, and it was a report that they wanted us to do on our health. And so I started
Huh.
reaching out to the hospital and the doctors and trying to gather the information. The hospital did no longer had my information. The doctor who had delivered my first son, who had it in his office, I went there. They said everything before a certain date was no longer, they did not have my records.
Hmm.
And so they didn't transfer everything over to microfilm. They just kept on with their current.
Interesting.
I can't get a hold of my medical records. I've tried, and all I have is my dad would save every piece of paper. So I have all the medical bills.
So
I
you
used
know
to go
all
to
the stuff that was done.
every test. I remember all those. I was in the machine getting the MRIs and the CAT scans
Yeah.
and the stuff shot into me and all the things
So you had chemo prescribed for 18 months
as a
as a
preventative
precaution?
measure. Yes, because they said that one of the cells may have gotten loose and could attach anywhere in my body, and they wanted to prevent that from growing into some kind of a
Okay,
tumor.
so no evidence that
So
that was the case, but okay.
so we waited until I healed a little bit. A few months later, I started the chemo, and I would go in every Monday and get 3 vials shot straight into my veins of, I can't even tell you what.
Some kind of chemical cocktail. Okay.
Mhm, 3 of them. And that was every Monday. And then the fourth Monday of the month, I would get admitted for a week. And they
Oh,
had me on an IV
wow.
drip getting chemo for the whole week.
Oh,
And I got
geez.
all the tests done. They would put me through everything. And I lived there for a week with all the other kids. I can never
Mhm.
forget that man's office, the way all of it. It was not
Mm.
okay. Whatever was going on was not okay. When we told him that we were going to get off of it, so I'm fast forwarding because
Yes.
we ended up getting off of it after 9 months.
Yep.
Thank God, because I was almost dead.
Uh,
He told my parents, I remember I said, I was sitting right there. You're
yeah.
going to kill your daughter if you take her off of this chemo.
Oh my God.
That's
And it was quite the opposite, it sounds like. They were
it's
killing you
exactly
by
the
keeping you on
Yeah,
this.
they were. And so I don't know about this doctor or what kind of experimental stuff he was doing, but he took my
Right.
records when he left the hospital, is what the hospital told me.
Which of course
And
is highly unusual, right? Most of the time that's never allowed, is it?
that's not supposed to be allowed. And
Okay.
so I can't track this person down. I did track down the surgeon. He was like 92 when I talked to him. And he remembered me because I guess I was came out of my anesthesia with jokes like
And
me.
so he remembered you, but did he remember anything about your case that
He did
was
not.
illuminating?
Right.
No.
No, he
Darn.
said, I don't remember. I just remember that you would have died. I remember that part because
If
you
you
were
hadn't had the
full
surgery.
of fluid.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
if nothing else. But I was trying to get stuff out of him and he just
Sure.
didn't have it for me. And so
So
yeah, go
wait, so when we were talking before we
ahead.
got on here, you said you stopped the chemo at 9 months, but there was it's kind of an angelic intervention for you, you
Yeah,
said. Want to tell us a
yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah. So my mom, she would bring me to work on Fridays because by Friday, usually after the chemo, I could get up and walk by Friday. And so I would
Oof.
go with her to work. And, she worked at a car dealership in the back. And one of the sales guys, Frank, he was a Jamaican guy. His wife was in the Bahamas at an alternative cancer center.
Oh,
And he had been watching me and, my mom was friends with all the guys that were there and they were all very
yeah.
nice. And I would pass out their mail and stuff like that.
Aw.
And one day I went to go bring him his mail and he said, "Oh, I have something for you." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "I'll bring it over to your mom's office." So
Hmm.
he came over and he gave us some papers and said, "You should do some research and look into these things." He told us we already knew his wife was at an alternative cancer.
Okay.
And I was looking at the paper while he was talking to my mom, and I remember seeing green vegetables, juice, sunshine,
Mm,
wheatgrass, things like that on the paper.
yeah.
And he was talking alternative, and I'm going, what does any of this have to do with cancer? Because for me, cancer
Ah,
treatment was just
the
the cancer
conventional
treatment,
stuff.
the
Sure.
hospital. I didn't know any better yet. But those words were popping out at me. And so he told me, take this. He told my mom to go to the little health food store, go to the library. Here's some books that were recommended reading from this cancer center that his wife was at, things like that. So we did that. We went straight there and went to the library and I started digging into the research and did that for about a month.
Which is
And
pretty impressive for somebody at that age,
I
right?
was
I
a
mean,
reader. I was an avid reader always
oh, me
anyway.
too. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
So it
in the
felt
middle
like
of the
a
night.
a
Yeah,
normal thing for you to do research
right.
and to read a lot. And you
Oh
said you
God.
were an A student anyway, so
Yes. So I loved school. I loved learning. And now it was
yeah.
something that might actually make me feel better. So heck yeah, I
Yeah,
dug
this was
into it
like
and I was
a
happy
life
to do
or
it.
death kind of thing.
It was.
Wow.
So yeah, so I remember going to the health food store and trying the carrot juice that was recommended.
So
I
you
didn't
didn't
know
go down to the
what
place in Bahamas. You did this protocol on your own.
no in Miami. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so you got enough information about what protocol to use that you had all these different things that were recommended. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, what was recommended was a basic overall cancer prevention and reversal protocol, right? Through
Right. And so, yeah, so
food,
what were the basics? So
lifestyle.
juicing.
Yeah, so right, green juice, carrot juice, mostly plant-based, if not
Yep.
all plant-based
Yep.
diet. I
Yep.
did go vegetarian at that time.
Yep.
Making sure that I was getting water.
And good
Uh,
quality water. Like, was that a thing back then?
that was not a conversation that I
Okay.
recall. There was
Okay.
just water
Yep.
and sunshine and
You lived in Florida, so that probably wasn't too hard
right, no
to
problem,
get.
right? I can't tell you like the whole list of vitamins, but I remember a few because they were like a lot.
Oh,
I was taking them
really?
a lot.
Okay.
So vitamin C I was taking pretty big amounts of
Super
vitamin
high
C.
dose. So kind of
Uh,
like what was it? Linus Pauling, wasn't he the one that was big on really high dose vitamin C, particularly
I
for
think
cancer?
his name actually sounds familiar. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I
they must
think
have
they
done.
even had, or he might have created the intravenous vitamin C, if I remember correctly. Okay, so
Okay.
high vitamin C.
Vitamin C and vitamin A was something that I was taking pretty big
Okay.
amounts of. And so I remember those two. And then there was herbs that I was drinking into tea that my mom would make.
Oh,
I,
one of them
I
wasn't Essiac tea, was it?
Graviola was the one that I remember.
Graviola. Okay, I've heard of that
Something
one.
called graviola. I remember that one.
Oh, interesting.
And then the juices and the vegetables
Right.
and those things. Okay.
Okay.
And think
So,
happy thoughts, right? Peter Pan.
okay,
Okay.
so that was part of it, right? The whole mindset
To
thing?
make sure, yeah, to get away from any negative, anything that makes me feel bad. So they recommended
Interesting.
that anything that makes you feel good. So comedy TV, if it's going to make
Nice.
you laugh, family gatherings, or going to the places that you love, things like that were all part of what they recommended that people do to
Yeah.
help them with their healing. And so, yeah.
So were you going to school then at this point?
Yeah, so when I got sick, it was in 8th grade, and I ended up homeschooling. What that meant for me is I had a teacher come to my house one time a month
It's a
to,
month?
but I had a little speaker next to my bed and a stack of books, and I would be on with other kids who were also going through treatment at home with a teacher
Oh, interesting. So were you
on a
able to get
dinner
out of
call.
bed?
I mean,
Not
not on
really.
Mondays. Uh,
After the chemo stopped, though.
Oh, yeah, it took a while, but I mean, I was able to get out of bed after the chemo wore off each week, and then going
Okay.
forward, once I stopped
Right.
it, yes, the
Yeah.
poison, once it got out of my system, I got off at 9 months. So I want to say, I was feeling my hair started growing back and things like that, which was
Yeah.
an indicator saying there was my energy,
Yep.
within a month.
Oh, that's great.
Started,
Okay.
I started having some hair, and I started feeling like, because I was being forced by myself to get up and go outside in the sun doing the things. That was what got my parents to agree to get me off, because I was begging them and like saying, I'm not supposed to die like this. I'm not supposed to be in this
Wow.
world, things like that.
How did you know
Really,
that? Was that like an intuitive knowing, or how would you describe that?
because it hit me one day in the hospital. And I don't know if it happened after Frank, but I feel like maybe not so much. I feel like it happened right around the same time.
Okay.
I remember I was in the hospital room. This is in my book too. And I was laying in the bed, and I saw the girl next to me. And oh, the girl down the hall died, and she died from chemo, weakening her heart,
Ah.
not from the cancer. And she had been
Oh
living in the
God. So
hospital.
that was a wake up call.
She had curtains, stuffed animals, and a bedspread that were hers. She lived there
Oh
at the
my
end of the hall, and she died.
goodness.
And I remember thinking, I'm not supposed to die here. I didn't even
Mm,
think I was supposed to be there, but in hindsight, I wasn't supposed to die there. So I'm
right.
not going to say I wasn't supposed to be there, because I
Right.
believe everything that happened was for a reason. My mom came in that day after I found out about the girl dying, Sandra, and I started telling her, Mom, I'm not supposed to be here. I know,
Mm.
honey, I know. We just, Mom, and like, I'm not supposed to be here. I was with all this energy because I was pretty messed up. Still alive, go away. But yeah, my brother, especially him, he and I were super close, and we were all good.
So would anybody else do the juices and the vitamins or anything like that?
I think our family's food changed to more vegetables,
Okay.
which was already because my mom always cooked at home.
Cook from
Came from,
scratch.
she did. She
Nice.
was raised mostly by her Sicilian grandparents who came from Sicily. And so
Yep.
there was always vegetables and salads and things like
Nice.
that.
Is there any awareness of organic at that point, or was it just vegetables?
No, I don't remember a conversation about organics or
Yeah.
pesticides until my son started getting sick, fast forward. But
Oh, okay.
my mom, she no fast food. We didn't go to fast food places very much. There was no sugar.
Oh, wow.
Like
That's like my household
that
growing
was
up.
my life.
Cooking
Yeah, it
from
was.
scratch, eating really
Yeah,
healthy. Yeah.
yeah.
My mom, she was into the nutritionist Adele Davis. Are you familiar
Mm-hmm.
with her at all?
Nice. Yeah, I've
Yeah, I
heard of
think she was
her.
popular in the 70s. Yeah, so I had
Uh-huh.
to take all kinds of different vitamin supplements, and my mom used to make something that she called Pep Up, or maybe that's what Adele Davis called it. It was a
Uh-huh.
disgusting, like thick brewer's yeast liquid that was just gag me. But I did it because I think I probably had past lives where I was a healer. I ended up, going that path for a while before I got into the green living. I did do massage therapy and energy healing, and I feel like I've always been interested in health. And part of it, I'm sure, is, inspiration from my mom and my stepfather being a chef and, cooking from scratch, learning how to cook at the age of 8 or 10. So you're starting to feel better after about a month. Your hair is growing. Then what happens?
Well, I kept getting tested. They kept not finding any cancer, and that had been the
Awesome.
case the whole time. I kept getting tested for probably 5 years. regular basis until they said I was out of the danger zone. I just went back to living my life.
Oh, that's
What
awesome.
happened, I stayed vegetarian. I kept taking the supplements. I kept doing all the things on the food end and on the
Yes.
vitamin end. So anyway, the doctors told me I couldn't get pregnant.
Oh, and that was
They said,
because
they said my,
who
again,
knows?
I
So you
don't
still
answer.
had a uterus, you still had an ovary,
Yes, I did.
and you
Said
still
my
had a
chances,
fallopian tube.
yes, the chances of me getting pregnant were very low. Well, it wasn't.
Oh, no kidding. You got
I,
pregnant
I
immediately?
was 16 and I had a miscarriage. And then
Oh,
I was 17 and I got pregnant. Well, I had a boyfriend who lived right down the street. And
oh boy.
when I had her, I turned 18 while I was pregnant
Okay.
with her.
Yep.
And I wasn't really ready for that. My parents had split up. My mom
Oh,
was now in California. I was in Florida with my dad, a closed adoption.
so let me just sort
I
of
was so
back into,
high.
there was something you mentioned about your son and it was relative to organic food. What was that all about?
That's my youngest son. So my youngest son started getting sick when he was about 13-ish or something, like right around the same age I got.
13, around the same age as you.
Yeah, so that was super scary. And
Wow.
we kept getting these fevers. He had no energy. He used to be like parkour king,
Yeah.
bouncing off the walls, all this energy. And all of a sudden he's just like, no energy, calling me from camp. I want to go home. He passed out at school. That's what got me to
Passed
the
out?
doctor. On the ground, like hit his head
Oh,
in the playground. And so I took him to the doctor, and it started a whole thing of I need every test done. Okay, now I had been taking him to the doctor. He's got a fever again. He's got no
yeah.
energy. He doesn't feel good. His stomach hurts. All these things we couldn't
Yeah.
figure out. They're going, he's fine. He's fine. He's fine. Okay, so just context. I always had the knowledge from as far as eating goes, right? From because my foundation was strong. But my husband's family, I was living with his mom, and when in Rome, they were processed,
Um,
kind of got on board with it. I became extremely overweight,
oh my.
I had chronic pain. I was on prescription drugs. I was,
So this is how this son was raised, was eating all this processed stuff? Ah, okay.
yeah,
And no
so
judgment, no judgment.
I
I'm
know.
trying to get
Well,
the
and then I
facts
made
here.
sure there was vegetables. Yes.
So was
Yeah.
he diagnosed with anything?
No,
Never.
what they told me was he's fine. He's fine. He's fine.
But
All of his
clearly
tests
he
look fine.
wasn't.
Everything looks fine.
Yeah.
You're good. Don't don't worry about it. What
So what did you
happened?
do?
Hello. I started researching. Now we had a computer, so I could do some research, and I
Right.
started looking into symptoms. And somewhere in there, the Food Revolution Summit appeared. Ocean Robbins and John
Yeah.
Robbins. It was happening, and I jumped in and I listened to every single doctor, naturopath, mother,
Ooh.
all the food activists, everybody for a week straight, every
Yep.
single one of them. Watched all the documentaries that they recommended. I'm
Right.
hearing stories that are exactly what's happening to my son, and people healed their kids with food. And so my
Wow.
husband and I are in the cupboard after watching Genetic Roulette.
Oh, so he
And
watched with you.
yeah,
Oh,
because our
good.
kid was super sick. We went to clean out our cupboard and started reading the ingredients and ended up with no food in our
I'm not
food
surprised.
our cupboard. Same with our fridge. So now I'm
Yeah.
on the computer looking for organic and non-genetically modified foods. So I looked up Whole Foods. I go to Whole Foods. I have a list of things I'm trying to replace. I start
Yeah.
buying all this, organic mac and cheese because I'm still not completely on board yet. At least it's a step better. And there's no high
Yeah.
fructose corn syrup in the
Right.
store. So I started replacing things. I bring it home. The kids would say, this tastes like cardboard. This tastes good. This is bad. This is good. This is bad.
Right,
So I would
because
put,
when you go from a totally processed
yeah,
food diet, which is
your
an
taste buds.
addiction, right? Because all those chemicals and the sugar and well, sugar meaning, high fructose corn syrup usually, and the salt and the vegetable oils, seed oils, all of that stuff is designed to be addictive because they used the same kind of scientists, I guess, or researchers or whatever that RJ, Reynolds with cigarettes to figure out how to make food just as addictive as cigarettes were. So,
It's
okay,
real. It is
continue.
so real. So I am bringing food back to Whole Foods going, can I return this, return this, return that, return this, return every week. They knew me now.
I
Uh-huh.
want to point something out for listeners because this is really a powerful point. You're shopping at Whole Foods assuming that everything is healthy, right? But
Yeah.
unfortunately, all the natural food stores, all the food co-ops, all have junk in there. And that is why we have to be so vigilant about reading labels and knowing what we're looking for. I mean, this is one of the things that I teach about, clean eating or clean eating mastery is the name of my self-paced course, but it's all about figuring out what do the labels mean? For example, wild caught. I did a big analysis on 100 different food labels and realized wild caught really doesn't mean anything unless it has the Marine Stewardship Council logo on there. Or natural. People used to think natural meant organic. It does not. It's not regulated. So
No.
anyway, there's so much that even health conscious people
Yeah.
don't realize is going on
No.
underneath the
So
marketing.
it's a whole thing. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm right on board with you. I'm replacing our food. My son is showing signs of getting better. We went completely organic.
Oh,
Completely.
sweet. Okay. So
Completely.
he could usually be one of the study participants that,
Yeah.
I've read about who go from a, processed mainstream conventional food diet to eating organic. And within a week, usually the metabolites from the pesticides are gone from the system for the most part. All
It's
kinds of
real.
different things change. Okay. So he's
It's
starting to
real.
get better. Yay.
2 weeks, he's feeling better. Within a month, it never happened. The kid
Oh.
he used to be. Skin is clearing up. I have a teenage daughter. Everybody's losing some weight.
So
Trying to
everybody's
lose.
eating this way,
Well,
thankfully.
yeah, that we went all in now.
Yeah, good for you.
And so across the board, everything was getting better in my
Yes.
house. That same year, I got an email from Chris Carr, and she mentioned the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and said, if you're trying to piece things together like I was doing to fix my
Yeah.
illness, da, 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 I
Yeah.
jumped on there and I got certified as an integrative nutrition health coach.
It was a pretty impressive program from what I've seen. I mean, I was kind of all self-taught, but I've looked at that curriculum and I thought, oh man,
Yes,
that
it
would have
was
been
really
cool for
good.
me 33 years ago.
Well, it was cool for me then, even though this had been like a journey for me already. I was
Right. You've
already.
already lived it.
So that same year, a lot of stuff happened. I was getting certified through the Institute and I got a job at Whole Foods to pay for the groceries to get a discount.
Oh,
We're like putting out all this money. I don't get my nails done still. Priority is my health. Okay.
totally.
So
Because it
still,
really is an investment. That's one of the things I always try to point out to folks is that people will talk about the higher price of organic and we have a certified organic farm. So I know what goes into growing that food. It's unbelievable amounts of work. So knowing that you're investing in your health now as prevention so that you don't have to get into that hamster wheel of toxic synthetic food and then pharmaceuticals and all the crazy stuff that has happened to people.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I started the health coaching thing. I start working at Whole Foods. I'm getting clients at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Everything's getting better around the food thing. And so then I start health coaching. And Mark Hyman, he was one of the teachers who was teaching us. So I jumped on because it was like I knew him, right?
Yeah.
All the things he was saying, I
Yeah.
understood. I started running his detox, which I still run to this day, his 10-day blood sugar solution. I've been running it for like 9 years with clients.
Oh.
Get all the crap out, give your body a chance, and then
Yep.
start adding it in and figure out what
Yep.
agrees with you, what doesn't, and
Yep.
get all the pesticides out and all the GMOs out, and add in the lifestyle habits that are going to support you. How it's not that hard to stay healthy. It really
Right.
isn't. Simple, but it's not easy. I've seen a lot of people have a hard time because they're hijacked with sugars and flours and all of these things that aren't
Yes.
really like substances that are
Right.
not health supporting. So my son's first job, I got him an interview over at Whole Foods. I still work at Whole Foods part-time. I've been there going on 11 years now. Last year, I closed a natural supplement store that I bought from the previous owner. And then the pandemic hits about
Oh,
less than a year later. The health department's telling me to close and I'm fighting them. And I never closed. I was open and I helped so many people in this
oh, I
community.
bet. You really were an essential service, much more so than a
Hello,
liquor
come on.
store, for goodness sakes.
These are vitamins. That's what I was telling them.
Right.
But I established myself pretty well in the community as a health expert.
One piece that I'm curious about that we haven't really talked about is the whole mindset thing. How did you shift
Yeah.
your mindset at different times? Like, how did you get into that realm?
Yeah. So, oh, my dad. So my dad took psychology in college,
Oh,
and I
me
remember
too.
all of his books on the shelf. And I love to read. Way before I got sick, I read all my books. Like it's time to move on to my parents' books.
Yeah.
So I read a bunch of psychology books when I was young. I remember
Yeah.
taking them to the beach in Miami. I
Yeah.
would just be reading. So I had already had a kind of an understanding of how the human mind works and things like that. And so when the cancer and all of the chemo and all that, I feel like I thought my way out of that chemo ward before I really took the measures
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah.
But fast forward to that same year, the same year that I got the IIN, that I got my son healed, I got the job at Whole Foods. Brendan Burchard really called High Performance Habits.
Oh,
And
okay. So that's the training that you got into for the high performance coaching.
yeah, and I just got
Oh,
certified a few years ago for that. But I started integrating those habits into my coaching. I dug into his work so hard, the Motivation Manifesto and the Millionaire Messenger. I've been on his radar ever since someone gifted me a ticket to his event.
so Carrie, who are the types of people that you are typically working with?
What I've been historically working with for the past 10 years or so has been just everybody. And so I've been very broad about it.
Not necessarily people that are healing from some kind of illness.
I've had a lot of those people coming to me when I had the store
Yes.
because
Oh,
they were
that makes
coming
sense.
looking for answers, right? And so I did end up with a lot of people with diabetes or pre-diabetes
Yep.
or some kind of blood sugar imbalances. I've had a lot of people come in who are going through cancer treatment. I want to be working more with people who want to prevent because it's so much
Yes.
easier if you get in front of it.
I've been kind of playing a lot with who really has the motivation to make the changes because it does take effort, right? I mean,
It
there's
does.
a step-by-step process you can do, and it's so much easier to do it with somebody that can hold your hand through it, who's been through it
Right.
themselves, right? But
Definitely.
I
Yeah.
feel the same way about, gosh, wouldn't it be great to just get everybody doing these preventative practices so that they don't have to deal with the sick care system and, poor
Right.
health and all the things that go along with that.
Absolutely. And so, really people who want to reclaim their health,
Because
set
you've
the
done that and you
purpose
did
in
it for your
life
son
multiple
too.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I like right now I have a group of women doing a holistic hormone renewal program. I run detoxes probably now about 4 times a year.
One of the things that I keep coming up with, or not coming up with, but keeping on hearing from guests that I interview, especially those that have been through chemical sensitivity, is the role that the emotions play in the healing. Right.
Yeah.
That's one thing that probably didn't think about as much in my earlier days, but now I'm starting to see that, like with you and mindset and how that helped you get yourself off chemo and out of the hospital. I think that the role of emotions and trauma and healing from all that kind of stuff plays a significant role on our health.
It was huge.
What are your top three recommendations for people that are listening as far as taking their first step into a healing or more healthy lifestyle?
I guess an easy one would be to look up anti-inflammatory foods and
Uh,
get your diet. You can
okay.
do that on your own. I could say stop this and stop that, but
Right.
really you're better off just starting to add stuff in that's going to help balance you out a bit. So anti-inflammatory eating is pretty important. It's everywhere. You can look it up easily. I could give you a long list of anti-inflammatory foods, but making sure that you're getting those into your body, that is really important. And then simplifying to reduce overwhelm.
Okay.
Keeping things simple because people can get overwhelmed. There's a lot of information out there. People don't know what to do or what to choose. If you go to the simplification of it all, so,
Yeah.
eating really basic foods, things that aren't made in a box, things that are whole foods, keeping that
Right. That
part
don't
simple.
have an ingredient list.
Right. And making sure like you're using your breath because it's one of the free best ways that you can regulate your nervous system, keep stress and anxiety down, that you can stay grounded and get centered.
Do you
To
have a specific type of deep breathing practice that you use?
the one that I've really stuck on to, I
Yeah.
do the 4 breaths in, hold it, 4 count of 4 out and
Yep.
holding it, the box breathing. That's the one that I find myself defaulting to when I'm like, okay, I need to breathe.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need to just stop and breathe. I'll just count in for a count of 4 and hold it for a count of 4 and then breathe it out for a count of 4 and hold
Nice.
it. Just do that a few
Yeah.
times. It brings down your blood pressure. It brings down your heart rate.
You know what I've noticed about deep breathing? Because I've taught myself to do that from years ago. Now it's just instinctual. I feel like my body immediately starts to get to that deep breathing place when I've feel anxiety building or stress or something, it's like I don't even have to think about it. It just
And
starts
that's
to
the
happen, which
beauty
is
of it,
cool.
because the more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
Exactly. It becomes second nature.
Absolutely. And the third one, I would say, to really dig into personal development, Brendon Burchard released an app called Growth Day. I have a link that I could share with you to share. There's a bunch of coaches teaching in there. If you don't like Brendan, fine. There's different subjects that they're addressing. And I think everybody needs personal development. That's how we grow, is by working on ourselves. In an effort to become better, step into your best self.
I look at it as kind of raising our own consciousness, right? I feel like most of us live from the place of our ego as opposed to our higher self. I believe that we have a soul that's, connected to the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, and that oftentimes the ego takes us down a different path than what is necessarily better for us. Not that those learnings don't have some value, perhaps, but for me, the goal is to always know myself better and reach those moments where I'm living from that place of my higher self as opposed to, not really thinking about what I'm doing.
Agreed. Absolutely. And if
Yeah.
an app isn't your thing, there's so many books out there on
Yes.
personal development, on raising your consciousness.
Yeah.
So Brendan's one of my favorite authors. He's really,
Nice.
really made it easy for me to understand and to implement into my life. Another really good one that is here is from Deepak Chopra and Rudy Tanzi, and it's called The Healing Self. It's talking about, beyond just food, mind, and
Yeah.
consciousness of the soul, and how they're all integrated, and how these things can all be addressed for
Yeah.
overall good health.
Have
Those are a
you
few of
have
my
you read
favorites.
any of Alan Cohen's books?
Alan Cohen. Mm-mm, I don't think so, but
He's
maybe.
definitely one of my favorite authors. He takes a lot of spiritual concepts and sort of boils them down to make them really easy to understand through telling stories. He's
Okay.
got one of the books that I think really stood out for me, even though I thought the title was horrendous. Now I can't even think of it, Relaxing into Wealth or something. I'll put the link in the show notes for anybody that's interested in his books. He is one of the most interesting authors and so easy to read. It's like you can just sort of slip away into the stories.
And there is a good book that's come out. Hopefully, she's going to be our next Surgeon General. She got nominated. So, Dr. Casey Means, technical, but there's some really, really good stuff in here and good energy. Just the connection between your metabolism and your health. And so that's really great. And then any book from Dr. Mark Hyman. If you're
Oh
looking for
yeah,
some
yeah,
food
definitely agree.
choices, a good basic one is called Food, What the Heck Should I Eat? And
Oh,
it
that's
just
a good
breaks it
one.
down into very specific things, so that anybody who doesn't have an idea at all what they should be doing, that could really help to guide you. And so my book's going to be coming out. My working title is called Scrolls of a Survivor. And for anybody who is going through hard times and doesn't think that they're able to get out of it, just to help people see that there's a light at the end of the proverbial
To give
tunnel.
hope.
Yes, that's what it's all about.
And when
Yeah.
do you think that will be out?
I am looking to release it this year, so I'm working
Oh,
with an
cool.
editor.
Congratulations.
I appreciate you having me on here,
Oh,
and
my
I
pleasure.
appreciate
It was absolutely
the
fascinating.
question.
And we are clearly very aligned in our views as far as, did you get into the household products topic much?
In my coaching, I do,
Oh,
absolutely.
you obviously learned about it in your training.
Yeah, at
Yeah.
IIN. And so I've been slowly chipping away at it, but I don't have normal stuff in my house. I think that the more you take care of yourself, the longer you're going to be able to. So
Right. And the better we'll feel while we're still here.
absolutely, it's all about
Right.
quality of life and just living well while you're here.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the
Thank you.
conversation.
Likewise.
Thanks so much for listening to the Green Living Now podcast. If you're ready to take the next step towards a healthier, more toxin-free life, don't miss my free mini course, 5 Steps to Ditch Everyday Toxins Without Overwhelm. You'll learn simple, practical swaps to clean up your food, your home, and your lifestyle without getting lost in research or confusion. Just head over to my website, greenlivingnow.com, and you'll see it right there, and I'll have it in the show notes below. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to detox their life.